Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Ankush here from Alif Consulting. Welcome back in our partner enablement video series. In today's video, we will be going to talk about how to build and design FSLogix for AVD customer. Well, here is the agenda of our video. So we will be going to discuss overall what is the FSLogix, what are the capabilities, what are the requirement, and then I will be going to walk you through with the reference architecture, how FSLogix look like in the pool scenario and how FSLogix is going to be in the personal scenario. And then we'll be going to cover some of the best practices, what are the BCDR option we have, and how we can do a backup and restore. At the end, I will be going to cover a small demo how your AVD looks like. Well, let's jump to the introductions and understand what is the FSLogix. So FSLogix is a set of solutions that enhance, enable and simplify the non-persistent Windows computing environment. FSLogix solutions are used for virtual environment in both and private cloud. These solution may be used to create a more portable computing session when using the physical devices. For FSLogix, and you can use FSLogix with Azure Virtual Desktop as a desktop virtualization solution on Azure. Store your profile in either on Azure file and the native file as described as storage options in the FSLogix profile container in Azure Virtual Desktop, right? So FSLogix is a kind of solution which allow you to fix a problem uh, of the profile, right? If we are running your uh, I can say a computing environment, or I can say virtual desktop environment in Azure, or maybe on-premise, right? You have a 10 servers in the back end, which is used to provide the session to the end user, but end user doesn't know on which system he is going to log in when he requesting for the virtual desktop, right? That's where FSLogix came in and can solve you the problem to store a user profile on a centralized location, so that whenever a user login into the virtual desktop environment, either in a cloud or either in the on-premise, he would be able to get the same set of profile when he log in earlier to the same application 2 hours ago or 3 hours ago, right? Or maybe 2 days ago or 3 days ago. That's where FSLogix application is used. FSLogix is a Microsoft owned organization. Microsoft have acquired the FSLogix. To use the FSLogix with AVD solutions, you don't need to buy any kind of extra licenses for that. But again, if you want to integrate it with any other environment or any other technology, for definitely though for that you need to buy a licensing for FSLogix. What are the benefits? Yes, you do get some of the benefits. FSLogix include profile container, office containers, application masking, and Java control versioning. Right? That's something is included with the FSLogix. Right? Now let's understand what is the profile container and the office container. Both of them are a separate thing. Right? Profile container is specifically used for the user profile. We store overall user profile configuration, also include the office container. Now if you have already enabled the profile container for user, you don't need to enable the office container again on the user profile, because ultimately it's going to be a misconfiguration for the user. Yes, if you already enable the profile container, you don't need to enable the office container, because profile container is already going to store all the information about the Outlook, PST files, Teams, all the office related things, configurations, right? But if you don't store, if you're not storing the user profile and you need to only store the office profiles or MS Office profiles, that's where the office container can be used to store the office profiles, right? At the same time, FSLogix allow you to roam the profile between the remote computing session host. Again, this allow you to do the roaming, because as I told you, FSLogix solved the problem to store the user profile on the multiple session host, right? That's where it allow you to do minimize the sign in time for virtual desktop environment, optimize the file IO between host and client and remote profile store, provide a local profile experience, eliminating the need of roaming profiles, simplify the management of application and gold image, specify the version of Java to be utilized by specify URL in the application. So these are the things FSLogix basically allows you to do with AVD solution. What are the capabilities, right? There are a lot of capabilities which can be used in the AVD environment. First, redirection user profile to a network location, mounting and using the user profile over the network, eliminating delays often associated with the solution that copy the profile to and from the network location. So it basically redirect the user profile to a network location, mount and using the user profile on the system. In that way, it's eliminating the delays, in eliminating the delays because of the profile need to be copied from one location to the another location. Second, redirection only the portion of profile that contain the office data by using the office container. That is the one of the capability. With this one, it's only going to uh, redirect the portion of office container for the end user. Third one is application setup profile as if it were on the local drive. Because of the FSLogix solution, use of filter driver to redirect the profile, application does not recognize the profile on the network, right? So that's where it can solve that problem. So let's take an example where your application only recognize a local profile, does not recognize the network profile, right? With the FSLogix, what it do, it work as a, it mount the user profile on the system as a local profile, and application would be able to sense that like this is the local profile of the user, this is not a network profile. Because I have seen there is an application uh, which only sends a local profile, which does don't sense like if there is any network profile is mounted there, right? Profile container use the cloud cache to create the resilience and high availability of the environment. Cloud cache place a portion of profile BSD on the local hard drive. Cloud cache allow your administrator to specify the multiple remote profile locations. The local cache with the multiple remote profile container basically used to sort out or to protect the network and the storage failure, right? So the cloud cache is the one of the feature which can use with the FSLogix. With the cloud cache, what is going to be happen, the administrator or the person who is managing the AVD can create a multiple location where the profile need to be stored. And with this one, it's also help us to do the BCDR options, right? It's allow us to replicate the user profile in the multiple regions, so that if in case of any reason goes down in or any failure with the AVD solution which is in a one region, I can go ahead and deploy the another solution with the golden image in the another region and can use the same location of user profile to mount it on the session host servers. Application masking, that's something you can do, and with this one it's allow you to manage the access of application, font, printer and the other items. So these are the capabilities which are available with FSLogix, and these capabilities are widely used by the AVD solution. What are the requirement, right? To use the FSLogix with the AVD solution, you don't need to buy any separate license, right? If you have Microsoft E3, E5, A3, A5, F1, F3 business enterprise licenses, Windows 10 VDA per user licenses, you have a RDA scales, or if you have a Azure Virtual Desktop per user license, you would be eligible to use the FSLogix without any extra cost. This is how your FSLogix looks like. So ultimately it mount as a storage account on the Windows operating system, and mount the user profile as a local profile on the session host whenever user logged in. And in this one it's create a multiple containers for all the applications like OneDrive, Teams, Outlook, Search and the user profile. Same way we do the FSLogix engine redirection and streaming data configurations in the session host registry, uh, and that's something is need to do on all the session host server. That's where you can do it while creating your gold image, and then you can create your session host from there, so that you don't need to do the same kind of configuration again and again for all the session hosts whenever you're deploying a new server for the FSLogix. So all of these configurations you can do while creating your golden image for for AVD solution. This is how your FSLogix will pool scenario looks like. So in this one, you will be going to have a multiple session host pools, and your backend storage account, either it can be on file share or either it can be on NetApp, will be getting mount to this session host using the FSLogix, and then from there, user will be able to get and store their profiles on the Azure file and NetApp. With the pool scenario, I don't think the FSLogix is required to be in the personal scenario. Sorry, because in the last slide we understand how the pool scenario is going to be with the FSLogix. In this slide, we are covering the personal scenario with scenario. So in the personal scenario, FSLogix is not going to make any sense until unless you want to give them a more space, or you want to give provide the extra space to the end user, because with the personal one, user know that he is going to have that only one server or one session host on which he always going to log in, right? If you have a dynamic assignments for a personal pool, that's where you can use the FSLogix, right? But if you have a static assignment and you already assign this session host to the specific server, you don't need to configure the FSLogix, because that's going to be give you the extra burden of administrator, right? And you can have your remote disk space assigned to the session host pool, and then from there user can store their profile. But again, if you need to give them a more capacity, like you need to give them a 1 TB of capacity, or maybe the 2 TB, 10 TB, or 100 TB, that's where the FSLogix can be used as a profile, and the user can store their the higher size of file, or I can say a bigger file directly on the NetApp or the Azure file share. Like, what are the journal and storage best practices are going to be? Get so the general practices are like, for optimal performance, storage solution and the FSLogix profile container should be in the same data center location or in the same region. That's again the basic best practices we need to eventually use with all the Microsoft services. Exclude the VSDX file for profile container for antivirus scanning to avoid the performance bottleneck. We recommend using a separate profile container per host while having the two active sessions. So this is the general recommendation. A part of that, there is the storage recommendation is going to be there in case of there is a light user, medium user, heavy user, and power user, and they all of they are going to be have a separate storage recommendation, right? For light user, if your concurrent connection are more than 200, go with the premium. If your concurrent connection are less than 200, go with standard. And a part of that, if there is any user like the medium and heavy, go with the premium file share. If there is a powered user, I would suggest you to go with the NetApp if there is any issues with the budgets or pricing. But yep, if there is a issues related to the budgeting and pricing, then in that case you can go with the Azure premium file share. Well, let's understand what is the use of cloud cache, right? Cloud cache is the one of the add-on with the FSLogix. It used a kind of a mechanism which store the all the user profile on the local system as a cache, and then from there it allow us to use the multiple locations to replicate the data, which are continuously updated during the user session and creating the true real-time profile replicas, right? So that's how this happen, right? That's something you need to do with the FSLogix. You need to enable the cloud cache add-on, and then you can specify the multiple location of file share or NetApp to the multiple regions, and that's where the FSLogix is going to store the user profile. It's happen completely a real time and during the user session. Using the cloud cache, it help us to sort out the problems like where is the short-term connectivity loss happen to the remote profile container, as a local cache is able to serve many profile operates in case of provider failure, and cloud cache continuously provide the business continuity, right? So let's take an example. If you don't have a cloud cache enabled and your FSLogix is directly mounting the profile from the network location, which can be either on file share or it can be either on the net app. But there is the network related issues happen and network outages happen. What is going to be happen, like your user would not be able to get their profile or would not be able to log in into the AVD, would not be able to get their user profile ultimately, right? With the cloud cache, what it do? It's keep a replica of the user profile on the local system, so that in case of any network issues with the network location, your user will be still able to get the profile, still able to go inside of and work on their profile. And as soon as the network issues is sorted out and FSLogix is able to connect with the network location, all the data and the changes which has happened in the user profile will be going to replicate on to the remote locations, right? uh, Cloud cache is only one of the many options that may consider for business continuity when using the profile container. Cloud cache provide the real-time duplication of the user profile that will actively fail over if connectivity to the cloud cache provider is lost, right? So as I told you, it can be a used to, or it can be considered as a BCDR continuously, BCDR options, because it's continuously replicating all the data to the another region and can allow us to actively fail over to the DR region in case of connectivity issues with the provider or cloud cache provider, right? Apart of that, there are a number of consideration when implementing the cloud cache, and it should be provide the real-time profile high availability, and insulate users from a short-term connectivity issue to the remote cache provider by serving read write from the local cache. Enable the use of Azure page blob storage via REST API. It can be effective profile tool when configuring the multi-geo environment and requires high availability and high performing host attachment storage to support the local cache. It is excluded on the host utilizing the process memory network and storage resources. When used as a solution for high availability, cloud cache required a multiple and full copy of user profile in the addition of the local cache file. So these are the some of the considerations which you need to understand. And again, if customer is looking for any BCDR options, it's better to consider the cloud cache, because with the cloud cache it's going to allow us to do the replication in the multiple regions. BCDRs, well, in the enterprise architecture, it's common to use user profile resilience and to configure FSLogix profile solution to be as effective as possible. There are amount of data being moved around and should be reduced to bare minimum, right? So, so again, you can there are multiple options which you can use for BCDR, right? Eventually, the first options is you can use the FSLogix with the cloud cache, which allows you to replicate the data to one region to another region. Another thing is to create the effective FSLogix profile solution is to use the OneDrive folder backup to put the documents and the base user profile folder in the OneDrive. That means you can take the advantage of built-in OneDrive features to protect the user documents, right? That's something you can do. So think about it, right? If there is any document which is available in the desktop document, that's something you can replicate to OneDrive by creating the policies, right? And by creating the policies through the Intune. In this case, what is going to be happen, you will not be going to be dependent on the FSLogix for the documents in case of any BCDR happen. You would be able to create your AVD solutions in a secondary region, and then from there the user profile, all the user data can be used from the OneDrive, right? That's one of the options for the BCDR. Another, in order to reduce the amount of data needed to independently replicated, archive and store, you should also split out the office caches into the of O365 disk. This is because the cache data often compromise the vast majority of profile data capacity that is used, because the OS disk only contain the cache data. You don't need to make a data resilient. Once the document and cache are separated from the profile disk, you should then intact your replicate, archive and replicate policy on the much smaller capacity disk. Again, uh, the office data which is which is kind of office cache and is there. That's something you can exclude from your replications, because you don't need to replicate your office data. You don't need to replicate your outlook data, you don't need to replicate your teams data, you don't need to replicate your OneDrive data, because all of those data are available on the Microsoft cloud, right? They are already stored on the remote location, and they can be downloaded anywhere, right? They can be downloaded on the another AVD solution as soon as user logged into the teams, logged into the OneDrive, or logged into the outlook, right? So you can basically exclude them, or can store into the separate storage disk, so that will be going to be a separate, right? In case of anything goes wrong with that specific disk which is related for O365, that can be restored, right? So again, that is the one of the, I can say, the options, or one of the step which you can take to reduce the amount of data that need to be replicated across the region. Azure File Share offer the replica options. So that's something is built in with the Azure storage account that's allow you to replicate the data from one region to another region with the GRS, and it allow you to do the to the failover as well, from the one region to the another region. And the fourth one, again, Azure NetApp file share also offer the cross region replicate. With this feature you would be able to replicate your FSLogix file share to the another region over the Azure backbone. That's again, you can do it again using the NetApp, where the cross region replica is something you can do, and it's by default built with the Azure NetApp file share, like a Azure file which is created on a storage account. And in this with the NetApp file share, you can go ahead and create your secondary instance in the DR region, and then you can replicate the data from the primary to the DR region. You will only going to pay for your replications, or you will be only going to pay for the data transfer rate. You will not be going to pay for all the instance cost there for the NetApp. Backup and restores. Yes, there is a few options for backup and restore. First, Azure File Share Premium can be integrated with Azure Backups, and it's supported with conjunction in conjunction of the FSLogix. Azure NetApp File Share also offer a snapshot mechanism to make the copy of FSLogix profile container. Right? These are the two options you have to make the backup and restore for user profile data. Now let's move to the demo. Well, in the demo, I have already deployed the one AVD solution. So if you see, this is the session host pool which I have deployed, and in the session host pool, I have two servers are created. Right now, if you see, I have already logged in, and my user profile is basically coming from one of the storage account. Right. So if you see, this is the network location from where my user profile is coming. Although this has been not mounted as a local one, because I haven't done any configuration on the local machine on the session host, because of they has been not created for the golden image. But again, I can use this network location to create anything, right? If I want to create any folder here, I can go ahead and do that. And with this one, what is going to be happen? Like if I move this shortcut here, right? So this has been moved into the one of the profile which I've created on the Azure storage account, which has been moved to with the which has been attached to with this server, right? If I go back and go to that storage account, you will see the same amount of so the same thing is will be going to be there. The shortcut of edge is going to be there. So yes, and same where you can have your directory created, right? Let's say if I create a directory here, right? Same way the directory is going to be available on the another site, and then from here I can have the uh, the copy created, and same way they are will be going to replicate on the Azure storage account, right? As soon as I refresh, I would be able to get all of them. So that's how the FS logic work. Although this has been not mounted as a local profile, this has been mounted as a remote or a network profile. But when you completely going to configure the the user profile, this is going to be show here as a here, and this profile will be going to directly come from the Azure storage account using the FS logic, right? And same way, the AVD has been there. So I have a two session host pool. So if user logged in on the one session or logged in onto the second session, he will be going to get the same configuration of there, which I have there. So if I logged in on the session one, or if I logged in on the session two, if I cross this one, and if I logged it on again, you will be going to see I will be going to get a same network profile mounted onto the another session, or whenever a new session is going to be login. So as of now, if you see, I just have selected the remote desktop. I just put in my username and password. I don't have option to select in which server I want to go. And if you go here, you would be able to see the same network path. The network profile has been going to be available for me, because that's something I have configured in the session host pool for the user session. If you go here, if you go to the Explorer, right, this is here. So somehow this is not showing it here, but you will be able to see the all the drives which has been there, and you would be able to see all the network drives which is there, right? So that's something you can do it, and the same way the user session is going to be there. All right, looks like my session has been yep. So let me try one more time. Hopefully, I don't know why it's not showing it, but that should be going to show the same configuration for the another session source also, because I have done the same configuration on all the servers. No, this is not showing it for me. I don't know. No, this is there must be some issues with the configuration, but it will be going to show you the same path of networking which I have shown into the another session. Well, that's it in the demo. I hope you like this video. If you like, please click on like and subscribe for more upcoming videos, and feel free to reach us if you have any questions. Thank you.